I am here with, I don't know, probably the best way to say is a complete badass. Like it just, that is what it is. There's just, I don't know how else to describe. So I'm going to leave you, Anne, to describe yourself and what you do, because that's sort of my like shortcut to who you are and what you do.
You're so funny. I love it. Thank you. My name is Anne Ahola Ward. I am best known in Silicon Valley as the mother of startups. I am a futurist, published O'Reilly author, as well as a growth scientist who scales and grows startups.
Yes. And you are there that if anybody does anything wrong in the startup world, you will tell them, which I love.
Yeah.
But can you, if you look at a company, can you go like, what's going right, what's going wrong? Like, is it just sort of something that's automatic, or do you have to go and sort of do the digging first?
Typically, I can tell a few things by just looking at the website or the social media presence, and then talking to the team, seeing how they operate. You know, does the CMO show up to the call on time, or does he have to be late and tell me why he's late because he's so important and busy? And so you can sort of gauge from what you see on the homepage, almost always reveals some level of what their dysfunction is. I also look at the source, and that tells me like, oh, we see we've abandoned 3 tracking suites. And we left the code in. So I can tell a lot before I meet someone in person, for sure. But the real secret sauce comes from the data, obviously. Like I have to understand. And, you know, data was really like understanding analytics was what drove me from being a developer into a marketer, because I was like, well, actually I looked at this and this is right. And so I was very early to lead gen and SEO. And that's why I cut over to the world of marketing and growth for startups, because I was not that great of a coder.
Like, did you always work in startups? Like, did you have like a business when you were younger and then you just sort of went from there, or what happened?
I started, my first job out of school really truly was not coding per se, but in school I had a job as an HTML editor in the .com boom. So I was always sort of had geeky leanings, but didn't really embrace it till the college level. And the people I was hanging around with at the time were all super geeky. And so I just sort of learned to code as a thing to do and got a job editing code. And then .com boom happened, and I saw what happens at a startup when everything goes right. And then I saw a few that went wrong, and I was like, wow, this is the future. And so I'd always been obsessed with the future. You know, science fair project in junior high, I made a wearable. So it just sort of fit for me, because I thought this is a limitless environment.
Like, were you always like, were you in like second grade being like, teacher, I'm sorry, no, that's not how things
Well,
go.
My late father was a fraud man. So he was a CFE, CPA, CIA, and went and, you know, uncovered deep forensic fraud. He did internal forensic fraud. And so, you know, 8 years old, Daddy wired people going through our trash, because he was testifying for the city on, you know, a case. And, you know, so you kind of, I have a very heightened sense of right and wrong, because I had such a great, strong, ethical example. And my mother's also, I mean, I would not cross her. She's the kindest and the fiercest woman I've ever met in my life. But she says the same of me, that I had parents that were like, okay, you need to go ahead and tell us what you want to do, because you're going to have a career, and what is it going to be? And, you know, I remember when I was young asking my mom, like, can I be president? And she's like, sure, of course, dear. Which country? And it was just sort of assumed I would have a place in the world. And so I wanted to fight for it. And so I have a love of startups.
What about those executives, right? The executives who are sitting there is like, gosh, something's gone wrong and I don't know what it is. And like, when do you, what can they do on their own? And when do you come in and like crack that like badass whip that you have? Like when is that turn of events happen?
Well, it depends on if the VC brings me in or if the founder brings me in. It's usually a very different set of steps if it's the founder, because, you know, they're not always as willing to admit that maybe there's some change that needs to happen. When it's a VC that brings me in, those are my favorite because I truly get to walk in and just be like, look, we got a problem here. And there's less of the song and dance of, because I get it. You spend so much time on your startup as a founder. It's your baby, and no one wants to go and hear that their baby's up it. But the thing is, sometimes maybe we just need a makeover. And we have to admit what's not working. So, I've been put in all kinds of positions to have to co-founders decide they want to leave and, all kinds of random other stuff. But I really do, I just try to stick to my jurisdiction. Let's look at the growth, let's look at the revenue, the politics, you guys sort that out. Go on a weekend or something.
You're amazing. I mean, it's great. You're like sort of the chief restructuring officer of startups too, but you're the mother of startups, but it's like you're in there to like figure out how it all works.
Well, and it sometimes is personnel. It very often is, as we've all seen, but I usually try to limit my interference in that role because it's not what I'm there for. I'm there to make the company profitable.
One of the things that really inspires me about you is how actively supportive you are of women entrepreneurs. I have not seen, there are people that invest and there are people that you just support them, just like the cheerleader, but also, I don't know, how did, have you always, I keep on asking, have you always been that way, or where does that come from?
For me, it comes from the fact that I was the only woman in the room for many years. My only real corporate experience in my life was at Apple, and they were all lovely to me, and I still consider them all friends, but I was the only woman in that department. And so I had so much of that experience being in tech my whole career that I realized that the burden is on me as a leader, female leader in tech, to recruit and encourage others. And so I've always believed that leaders help create other leaders. And so that's, to me, the ultimate legacy for me would be to point out to here's all these executives that I helped. And so I actually find it very, very supercharging to help. But I think when I kicked it up a notch was after I stepped down from Upload, I went into a bit of a depression and didn't really know what to do with myself. And so I put a call out on a couple of the industry Facebook groups, and I was like, hey, does anybody need anything? I have time. It was the end of the year, and my projects had kind of ended for the year, and I had basically a month, and I was really kind of a little sad. And so I just said, hey, who wants to talk? And I scheduled probably, I think it was 30 or 40 calls, and hearing their problems, hearing their challenges, I was like, oh, well, we got to do that. We got to introduce you to this VC, and and so by putting myself in service to them, I had less time to feel sorry for myself. And, what had just happened to me and everything that, I wanted to leave behind. And so I realized that this isn't just for them, this is for me too, because I needed this when I was their age. And there were a few key women who really reached out and were like, hey, you're very special and you've got the stuff, girl. And I was like, oh. And I had a few male mentors too so I just feel like part of the process of growth in Silicon Valley and part of the growth of seeing more of us in tech means that we have to be that example, and we have to shine that light and encourage and push, because without it, people don't see a way in. And when people don't see a way forward, that's really the most unfortunate thing. So I feel like I'm a self-appointed ambassador.
What would you say though to people who are the young women that are thinking about getting in tech? What should they be thinking about, or the ones who've just started out? What kind of advice would you give to them?
I definitely would give the advice that don't be intimidated. Don't be intimidated by how much you have to learn and how much you have to know. And, it's all going to come at the pace that you can handle. So, I learned what I learned when I could, and when I didn't, I would say, I don't know. And there's no shame in saying, I don't know, but I can look it up. And being in tech does not mean you have to code. I think that's a really misleading thing. That was my path, but that doesn't mean it has to be your path these days. There are amazing people who have never touched a line of code, and you don't have to be a coder to be techie. So I think that's something that people don't understand. You know, we need everything. We need content creators, we need storytellers, we need enthusiasts, we need testers, we need advocates, we need everything in tech. And so I think people think, women especially, think they have to have that badge of honor, and I recommend trying it at least so you know that you did.
Yeah.
But I certainly don't think that should be a limiting factor to anyone. And that's something I tell anyone who will listen. I was very shy when I was young. And so
that I cannot picture under any circumstance.
Yeah, I was shy as like a 4 or 5-year-old. And my father just sort of said to me, you're going to look me in the eye when you speak to me. And just every day would make me look him in the eye. And he's like, look at my nose.
That's like the...
Yeah, and so I learned that I could face anybody, and that sort of toughness. But I also have to credit my mother, because she would say, "What's your name?" to me before I went to school, because I was like walking around like this, all shy, and she said, "What's your name?" And she asked me that every day until I said, "I'm Ahola!" Like they both were like, "No, no, no," and they beat the shit out of me, figuratively, obviously. And so I just sort of learned that I'm not really afraid of other people. I enjoy other people. I love going to conferences and learning. I love exchanging of ideas. I've seen companies form at, so many years of South by Southwest. And so because of so much of what I do is, on a laptop, it's just sort of where I get to go and showcase my ideas and hear other people's ideas. And I think that's something that really makes a conference special, is when you come away from it feeling like you've exchanged and learned on a level that you wouldn't have just reading things yourself online.
Yeah. What technology out there, whether it be 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 50 years from now, that gets you like really excited, like that you personally would be like, this is amazing, I can't believe somebody made this is changing my life, and it could be anything. So what out there?
I mean, for me, it comes down to, I think I'm the most excited right now about autonomous cars and autonomous everything. I think automation is the key to allowing us to advance. And I also get especially excited anything that helps enable the moving impaired, so people who have problems walking, or special situations with maybe they can't move their hand, or they've lost it in battle or something, like anything in technology where I see technology come in and make them feel more whole or more enhance their life. That's what it's all about for me, because I think technology should make our lives better. And so those technologies that do, like, being able to have driverless cars so that people can get home if they're, had too many drinks and they're on bubble, or, helping someone reach a shelf. Like, that's, to me, technology done right. Although, I'm obviously very interested in VR, AR, and MR. But that's more for fun. But in terms of like what will get me out of bed and like, oh my God, you have to see this, is going to be, things that are automation.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. Thank you so much, Anne. You're really inspiring. I mean, that's what the goal is with this, is to just, talk to the people that truly inspire me, with the hopes that it will inspire more people. So thanks for taking the time. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. You're awesome. I had a blast.